Once upon a time, if you were looking to buy the best-selling and most popular compact truck in America, you were looking at a Ford Ranger. Now, sadly, Ford let that momentum sizzle out when they discontinued the Ranger nameplate in America back in 2011. The company tried again by reintroducing the global Ranger to the States in 2019, but it was essentially an old truck because it was already in other parts of the world for almost a decade when it finally came to the States. Now, thankfully, for 2024, Ford is looking to make things right with the introduction of an all-new fifth generation here in America. And as you guys know, this is built on the global Ranger, so it's all new for other markets as well. So what we have here is a revised frame, revised powertrain with two new V6 engines under the hood, including a first ever Ranger Raptor here in the US, and an all-new interior with finally the latest software that you expect in today's modern truck. So as you can see this week, Ford has loaned us the mid-level tier version of the Ranger known as the XLT, painted in Velocity Blue Metallic. And the big question I answered, for those of you who are looking for a smaller pickup truck to do all your daily duties, does Ford finally have a viable alternative to the best-selling Toyota Tacoma? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the all-new exterior design for this new version of the Ranger, I thought I'd pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this truck. Now, here in America, you can take your pick between three different engines here in the US. The base engine that I'm showing you here is a carryover powertrain. It's the 2.3-liter turbocharged EcoBoost 4-cylinder. Now, underneath this hood, as you can see, it's not a very pretty engine to look at. This engine is essentially carried over from the previous generation. It's the company's 2.3-liter gasoline direct injection turbo 4-cylinder that makes 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are unchanged versus the 2023 Ranger. The upgraded engine for an extra $2,500 is the 2.7-liter twin-turbo V6 from the F-150. Haven't had a chance to drive that yet in the Ranger, but I'm hoping I can get my hands on one sometime later this year. The Ranger Raptor has a 3-liter twin-turbo V6 making 405 horsepower. I'll save that for a different review. Hopefully I'll have that for a week at some point as well. Now, power flows through a 10-speed automatic transmission, and you can take your pick between either rear-wheel drive or a part-time 4-wheel drive system with a locking rear diff that my test car has for an extra $2,500, I believe. Fuel economy is rated at 20 in the city, 24 on the highway. That's on regular grade gas. This has just under a 19-gallon fuel tank. You're looking at around just shy of 400 miles of range on a full tank. Now, Ford doesn't claim a 0 to 60 time. We'll test it out when we get this vehicle out on the road. Max towing capacity is 7,500 pounds, which is just shy of the class leader, which are the GM twins, the Colorado and the Canyon. And the Ranger, as it sits, this particular trim weighs in at just over 4,300 pounds. It is among the lighter options in the segment, but keep in mind, however, the Raptor version of the Ranger can easily be around 1,000 pounds heavier versus this truck. Now, closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the brand new exterior styling. Now, first of all, this truck that I'm showing you here is the mid-level XLT trim. It's one step above the XL. There's also a Lariat and a Raptor trim. It's painted in Velocity Blue, and I have to say this color looks really good with the new body lines of the Ranger. I love the sculpted and bulging hood that you get with the metallic fleck from the paint. All Rangers come standard with full with LED headlights. These are the base and projector style LEDs with an LED daytime running light, LED low and high beam, incandescent turn signal, and then the XLT also includes LED fog lights. The XL will have halogen fog lights. Keep in mind the Lariat and the Raptor will have an upgraded projector style LED. You can see the XLT also includes kind of a gloss gray finish to the actual grille with the blue oval. Ford logo. You can see there's a silver accented area here for the lower front bumper. There's kind of an aerodynamic piece there. And then this model here is lacking the FX4 off-road package, but it does kind of have like a sport off-road look like package. And overall, this truck has around 8.8 inches of ground clearance. That's a pretty decent amount. The Raptor will increase that ground clearance by about 2 inches. And it's also around 3.5 inches wider, so keep that in mind. Now, moving around the side profile, the frame on this truck has been significantly upgraded, and Ford also kept the dimensions for the most part in check. The overall length is the same at 210.6 inches long. Its wheelbase did increase by 2 inches to 128.7. It's also around 2 inches wider and 3 inches taller than the previous generation. So that's going to, of course, give it more of like a miniature F-150 stance to it. You can see my particular test truck has a 17-inch gray finish multi-spoke wheel, riding on a Goodyear Wrangler Territory all-terrain tire, a 255/70 R17. It's kind of a 31-inch tall tire. You have an independent front suspension, a live axle at the back, Like I said earlier, around 8 inches of ground clearance. I also love the gloss gray that you get here along the wheel or fender arch trim. There's a fake vent over here with the XLT badge, unpainted side mirrors. These are power folding, which is standard on the XLT. My test truck has the 301A upgrade package that rolls in the surround view camera. Sadly, no sunroof is available on any Ranger here in the US at any price. I don't know why Ford doesn't offer a sunroof. Hopefully they'll do that soon. For the following model years, you can see my test truck also has their keypad keyless entry thing there, which is an extra $195. And then if you guys are coming from the previous generation, sadly, if you're looking for a regular cab, extended cab, or a longer bed, you're out of luck for the new version because Ford is only offering it with the crew cab configuration with the 5-foot bed. This is just the most popular variant of the Ranger, so that's the reason why Ford's just simplifying the lineup, only offering it as this. You can see looking at the rear, it has a new taillight design. It's got kind of a combination of an LED incandescent for the turn signal and for the reverse lights. It's stamped out Ranger at the back on the tailgate. And then you can see my test truck has the advanced tow package. It can tow a maximum of 7,500 pounds. There's also a temporary, or it looks like a full-size spare underneath here, although it has a steel wheel, so it's not a matching alloy, and a slightly different size tire. Now, looking at the bed, I love the fact that Ford finally added a damped tailgate to the bed, which wasn't on the previous generation, which I thought was a rather missed opportunity. And then you can see my truck has the spray-in bed liner option for an additional $500. You can carry a maximum of 1,805 pounds of payload in the bed, which is pretty class competitive. It's definitely a nice number to see. You can see there's also 2 power outlets back here, a 12 volt and then an actual 400 volt outlet back here. You can also get bed accessories, obviously like a bed extender, a tonneau cover and whatnot. The spray-in bed liner is what I would get as well, but overall you can see the bed is certainly usable, but that's where the new Tacoma comes into play because it just has the availability of a 6-foot bed. Ford only does a 5-foot bed, which is competitive, but also not, you know what you would expect to find, especially if you're considering upgrading from your old Ranger. Now moving on to the interior of the all-new 5th generation Ranger. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. Now you can see the XLT comes with Ford's switchblade style key with remote entry. You can see it has the usual buttons here for lock, unlock, remote start, and panic. Remote start is included with the XLT trim. You can see this switchblade key is really old school, and this truck is not available with intelligent access key. You have to go for the Lariat trim for an extra $5,000 to get the push button start and the hands-free access as you approach the door handle. So you can see the door handle is traditional, it's unpainted. My test truck for $200 also has the keyless entry keypad with the code that you can put in program. But basically, if you want to unlock and lock it, you have to use the key fob. You can see the mirrors will also electrically fold in when you lock or unlock it, which is nice. Again, there's no hands-free. You have to unlock it via the button here, or you even can use the keyhole there if you guys are even more old school. And then looking at the interior, you can see my test truck with the Velocity Blue exterior has the sandstone cloth interior. Now this cloth material is surprisingly supple feeling. It doesn't feel cheap. It feels durable, but it's also soft and comfortable, which I like. The upgraded 301A upgrade package includes the 10-way power driver seat, an 8-way power passenger seat. No memory seats, however, you can get that on the Limited. The seats, if you want leather, you have to step it up to the Lariat trim. I'm sorry, not the Limited, the Lariat trim is what gets you the leather and the memory seats. Now looking at the door panels, you can see this is a hard touch injection molded plastic, although it has a nice graining material. It's all hard touch over here with this interesting geometric pattern. It's padded here with this kind of leatherette material for the armrest. The windows are one touch up down for the front, but not for the rear. You have some gloss gray here. Your door handle is here. You have power folding mirrors. The window controls, they have a relatively high quality feel to them, and they're also accented in silver. Down here, it's hard touch plastic, and you have a little bit of storage. And then with this trim, you just get the 6-speaker Ford standard sound system, which sounds okay. If you guys want a better audio system, the Lariat will include the 10-speaker Bang & Olufsen system. Now, getting inside with 8.8 inches of ground clearance, it does require you to kind of jump yourself up into the cab. There's no grab handle here or here, so I think that's kind of a mistake. So you kind of have to use the steering wheel to hoist yourself up. As I shut the door has a pretty solid sounding thunk, which adds to the impression of quality. Now, it's been a while since I've actually had to insert a key in the ignition, but that's what you have to do. If you guys go for the Lariat or Raptor, you'll have a push button start right here where the keyhole would go. So turn the key. There is something satisfying about this. And then when the vehicle starts up, you can hear it just has a traditional starter noise. This is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid, so you're just going to hear the engine fire up in the normal fashion. Now, in terms of the materials, you can see the entire dashboard is covered in a hard touch plastic. It kind of has like this hexagon texture in the actual dashboard plastic, which the dashboard is definitely a little bit shiny and looks a little cheap. I do like the leather wrap steering wheel that you get with the 301A upgrade package. You can see It has a manual tilt and telescoping adjustment with a good amount of range and adjustability, which is good. You have buttons here to control the adaptive cruise and the lane keep assist. You control the audio system here. That's an 8-inch infotainment or instrument panel display, which is standard. The Lariat will give you a full 12.3-inch display, which is something similar that you find in the F-150. No paddles on the wheel. The horn, the horn's actually really loud, which I love because this is a small truck. It basically says, get the heck out of my way. The center stack here you can see is an all new dash design. And of course you have the latest Sync 4A infotainment system. So this is the upgraded 12-inch display that is mounted in a portrait style, obviously. The standard display is a 10-inch setup. So it's a little bit smaller, but it is bigger versus the 8-inch screen that you get in the Toyota Tacoma as standard, although the Toyota will offer an even bigger 14-inch display. So this is definitely a nice size. You can see my phone is connected via the CarPlay wirelessly. It's got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It has over-the-air updates. It also has factory embedded GPS along with their tow features, where if you guys go for the advanced tow package, you have a trailer brake controller. You have the controller over here along with your drive mode selectors. You can see when you start cycling the drive modes, there's a total of 5 different modes, from normal, eco, sport, trailer tow, and slippery for bad weather conditions. Most of you will just have it in the normal function. There's also a part-time 4-wheel drive system with 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low, and there's also a locking rear diff, which I really like. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's a full 360 camera with top-down view, trajectory, parking sensors, automatic cross-traffic braking. That's part of the 301A upgrade package for $1,500. Love the fact that you can get a 360 camera even on the lower trims. You have 3-level heated seats here, but again, no cooled seats on any Ranger here, at least here in America, which I'm hoping they'll eventually add. The dual zone climate control that you're seeing here is also part of the 301A upgrade package. So it gives you a lot for $1,500 if you guys, are looking for a little bit more better equipped XLT. You can see there's a wireless phone charging pad here that fits my iPhone 14 Pro Max nicely. That's standard on the XLT. Not available on the XL. This controls the 10-speed auto. There is a manual mode here if you want to put this into M and then use that to control the shifts. I also like how Ford didn't put piano black plastic. Instead, it's got a matte plastic. You have an auto start stop defeat. You have an automatic parallel parking feature. There's a nice padded center console here. Open that up, you can see it's a huge center console with enough storage to fit all of my camera equipment when I'm not using it. There's also a 12-volt power outlet in there, and then 2 USB charging ports, an A and a C over here. As I mentioned earlier, the seats are comfortable and supportive. I actually really like them, and I typically don't like cloth. I also like how Ford includes a heat function with the cloth, which is nice. A little bit more storage over here, and you can see, open up the glove box. It's not damped or lined with felt, but it's a bin style. Offers a pretty nice amount of storage space, which is good. You have an auto-dimming rearview mirror, which I appreciate. Woven material for the headliner. With no sunroof available, you do have more headroom. Sunglass holder here, which is nice. You have LED map lighting, but no LED ambient lighting. That's included on the Lariat trim. No heads-up display as well, but overall, you have good visibility. You have average materials, you have comfortable seats, good technology. So I think Ford has finally done a great job at bringing the Ranger into the modern compact or mid-size truck era. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat and show you guys what that space is like. Now, of course, with this only offered as the crew cab configuration, Ford basically says the legroom in this truck is average. You have 34.6 inches of legroom, which is about an inch more versus what you get in the Toyota Tacoma. The Tacoma in general, I think, has a really tiny back seat actually, which I don't love. You can see material quality is hard touch plastic over here, over this area. It's nice and padded over here at least, which is good. And then those seats, they do flip up to give you a little bit more additional storage. You basically flip them up by pulling on that. You can see there's some good under storage over there. And then these also fold down, which is nice. If I get back here, as you can see, and shut the door has a pretty solid sounding thunk. And then you can see legroom spaces where I have the seat to drive is pretty good. I can kind of cross my legs and get relatively comfortable back here. This is definitely better than the last Tacoma I was in. No rear seat air vents, as you can see, but there are 2 USB charging ports, an actual power outlet here, which is nice. The truck is wider this year, so you could theoretically fit 3 people across. There's also an armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. That window does slide open. It's part of the 301A upgrade package, controlled via that little switch up there. And then in terms of the headroom space, you can see plenty of headroom because there's a lack of a sunroof. So if you are looking for a mid-size truck with a back seat that can accommodate actual average-size adults, the new Ranger can certainly do that a lot better versus its main rival, the Toyota Tacoma. So here we are back behind the wheel of the fully redesigned 5th generation Ford Ranger here in the US. This truck has been a long time coming because, as you guys know, the previous generation Ranger was introduced in America in 2019, but it was already a really old truck because it had been in other parts of the world since 2010, late 2010. So this is a big deal for Ford. The Ranger at one point was the best-selling small truck in America, but the Tacoma has clearly taken that role away from Ford. So the company's hoping with this new version, they can steal some sales, some thunder away from Toyota, even though, again, Toyota also just introduced their new Tacoma. Now, the one that we're driving is the mid-level tier Ranger. It's the XLT with four-wheel drive. Only comes in one cab configuration now. We have the 2.3-liter EcoBoost turbo four-cylinder hooked up to a 10-speed auto. Power figures are unchanged from the previous generation, and the quickest time that I've gotten in this segment was around 6.3 seconds in a Honda Ridgeline, which is technically a car-based truck. The Tacoma did this same stretch in about 6.9 seconds. Let's see what we can get here in the Ranger. I have it in 4-high. It's a part-time system. We have it in sport mode. We'll brake torque it. Feels pretty strong. Wow, 6.37 seconds there, which is actually pretty impressive. I actually thought that that time was actually quick. That's around a half a second quicker versus what Toyota does in the Tacoma. The last one that I tested was an SR5 with the 2.4-liter turbo and 8-speed auto. 6.37 is certainly among the quickest. This is actually about the same speed as the Ridgeline that I tested. A Nissan Frontier will do it in about 6.7 seconds. The Chevrolet Colorado, with its high output 2.7, will do it in around 6.4 seconds. So that's actually a pretty impressive time. You don't necessarily need to upgrade to the V6. For an extra $2,500, Ford will sell you the 2.7-liter twin-turbo V6 from the F-150, but again, it's not really necessary. Let's try another run here. This time I switched it to two-wheel drive mode. We won't brake torque it. 7.84 seconds there. So it makes a big difference when you can't brake torque it and when you're in two-wheel drive. If you're in two-wheel drive, you can't necessarily brake torque it. When you do that, it actually builds the revs up to around 3,000, and that's where it gets the turbo spooled up, so that's why it gets rid of some of the lag. The truck feels noticeably slower when you don't do that. So most of the times, you're probably going to be getting a low 7-second 0 to 60 time, but again, if you're looking for the quickest time, the Ranger makes a big difference here when you are basically trying to use the faux launch control in this truck, which is pretty darn impressive. I'll be curious to see what I can get in the V6 twin turbo, and of course the Raptor, which has the 3-liter twin turbo V6 as well. The Ranger is definitely the speed demon among the segment, although I am looking forward to getting a Tacoma hybrid to test for a full week and see what we can do in the Tacoma hybrid. Now, for a 4-cylinder turbo, the engine doesn't really sound like much. It actually just sounds kind of like a Dyson vacuum cleaner, but it does have, a smoother feel than I remember in the previous generation Ranger. You do have more of like a guttural fake tone that you get in the Tacoma with its 4-cylinder. The Chevy Colorado and GMC Canyon's 4-cylinder also sounds a little bit more meaty, but it also isn't quite as refined. It does have a little bit more vibration come through. Again, the Ranger is one of the few trucks out there that still is available with a V6. So if you want a V6, you want 6 cylinders under the hood, you're going to be wanting to check this out. The steering in this truck is vague. It's pretty slow to respond. It's a rack and pinion power steering, but you kind of get the sense that you are driving around in an actual truck because, again, it has a live axle in the back, independent front suspension. You can see when it's in two-wheel drive, it does spin out the tires pretty easily because of all that torque, but this 10-speed in this truck shifts so quickly, it shifts smoothly. It's a really great torque converter automatic that's a Ford design transmission. The company's just been really doing a lot to upgrade this transmission over the years with software, hardware improvements. It's one of the better transmissions in the segment you're going to find. We'll switch the drive mode here into just its normal setting, which is how most of you are going to drive this truck, is in normal setting. Because right now in sport, it tends to put the transmission, or not allow the transmission to go into its top overdrive gears, which again, it's doing that for acceleration. But in this mode, in normal, the transmission kind of goes back into its routine. It again will seek out the higher gears to get you the better gas mileage. It's really refined, this truck. That's what I really appreciate about the new Ranger, is Ford's done a really good job with the chassis, back end spinning out there, with the refinement, with the steering feel, or the lack of steering feel, I'm sorry, just It's still a really easy truck to drive. In fact, if you guys don't need the bulk of a half-ton truck, this is a really nice size. Now, sadly, Ford doesn't offer any other cab configurations. The old Ranger used to offer like a longer bed, a regular cab, or whatnot. Now it only comes as a 5-foot bed with the crew cab configuration, which is how most people tend to buy these trucks. Going around corners here, you can feel suspension is really soft, even though this model that we're driving has like the sport appearance package on a 17-inch wheel. It still surprisingly has an all-terrain tire. But on the highway, I was surprised at how quiet this truck is, actually. The engine doesn't really make much in terms of noise. You don't really hear too much from the tires. And the ride quality is good. Even though I drove around this truck with mostly an unloaded bed, it actually surprisingly rode really nicely. Visibility is also good out of the front, the side, the rear. My particular test truck also has that power opening sliding rear window, which is part of the 301A upgrade package, which is also pretty nice to get. The seats are also really comfortable. I typically don't like cloth seats, and if you guys want leather, you have to spec in the Lariat trim for an extra $5,000. But the cloth is actually really like not scratchy. It doesn't feel cheap. It feels premium feeling, and the seat cushioning and the padding material is just really good. I drove this truck on a longer trip, and I found the seats to be extremely comfortable along with the visibility and the sight lines from the driver's side. So Ford obviously has put a big emphasis on comfort and technology and refinement with this truck, and you get that feeling, especially when you are comparing it to the previous generation. I also love the new 12-inch Sync 4A infotainment system. It's not quite as nice and big as the one that you get in the Tacoma with its 14-inch display, but overall, I think this is just a massive upgrade, which isn't really hard to do. The old Ranger just felt old even on its arrival in the US back in 2019 or late 2018. In terms of driver assistance, this truck is not available with Ford's Blue Cruise, but you can get it with adaptive cruise control, like my particular test car with lane keep assist. So I'll be surprised to see, I'll be curious to see when Ford eventually adds Blue Cruise to the Ranger. It would be a nice addition, again, to offer that. Typically in the midsize truck segment, you don't get that. And then in terms of fuel efficiency, this truck is rated at 20 in the city, 24 on the highway. That's on regular gas. In my week's worth of testing, I averaged 21 mpg in mostly mixed driving, which is not bad. It's just shy of the EPA's combined figure of 22. You have an 18.8 gallon fuel tank, and the EPA says you should be able to do around 400 miles of range on a full tank. I actually did around 350 miles in my actual testing. So if you guys drive more highway, you should be able to get closer to that 400 mile range that the EPA says you should do. But if you're looking for a more fuel efficient truck, I mean, there's not really much that is. I mean, I haven't had a chance to test out the Tacoma Hybrid yet and see what it actually can do in the real world for fuel efficiency. I'll be getting one soon for a week to test in just a couple of weeks, and we'll be able to see if it's any better. But in terms of efficiency, in terms of power, the Ranger is either average or slightly above average. In terms of comfort, it's also a little bit above average, which I appreciate. Technology is great as well. So Ford's really stepped up their game in this new Ranger, and I definitely think that if you guys are looking for a compact truck, this one should make it to the very top of your list. Just be sure you aren't looking for a vehicle that has a sunroof, and also keep in mind if you want like push button start and leather, you have to go all in with the Lariat trim or the Raptor trim, of course, to get that, which does push the cost of the Ranger into kind of F-150 territory, but that's just kind of the case with a lot of these midsize trucks. They've just gotten pretty darn expensive. So last year here in America, Ford only managed to sell around 32,000 Rangers in all of 2023. Compare that to Toyota, which did around 234,000 Tacomas in that same time period. There was a time where Ford used to do over 300,000 Rangers here in the States. That was, of course, around 20 years ago. So obviously the company has some work to do if they're going to try to regain some market share from Toyota in the mid-size pickup truck segment. And they're certainly going to do so with the introduction of this all-new 5th generation Ranger. As you guys saw, the acceleration that you get from the base 2.3 is definitely among the quickest you're going to find in the segment at 6.3 seconds to 60. The refinement also has been just so much more improved. The engine is smooth. It doesn't make great sounds, but it's got a smooth shifting transmission. It's got comfortable seats. It's got class-worthy technology. It's got a backseat that's also decent in terms of size, while its towing and payload capabilities are also among the best that you're going to find in the segment. In terms of the exterior design, I also think Ford has nailed it. I think the styling of this truck kind of looks like a baby F-150, which is something that I think Ford needed to do, because now that the Maverick is in the lineup, the Ranger could move a little bit more upmarket. I do wish that Ford would offer features like ventilated seats and a power sunroof. I think that they may eventually offer that maybe for the next model year and so forth, depending on consumer demand. I am a little bit sad that they don't offer a longer bed version of this truck or different cab configurations. I think that's what keeps the Tacoma so popular with a lot of work truck buyers, is because they offer those different cab configurations. So I'm hoping Ford will eventually reconsider that, and also reconsider doing a hybrid version. I think in other markets, Ford offers a plug-in hybrid version of the Ranger. I think it would, again, expand the appeal of this truck, even though Ford's trying to keep it simple for now. I think if they want to become the sales leader again, they need to offer more variants, more powertrains, more luxury touches as well, in addition to more, lower end models to kind of keep buyers flocking to Ford showrooms. Now, if you guys are interested in getting your hands on the new Ranger, Ford has also kept the pricing relatively in check. A base XL with rear-wheel drive, they all come with the crew cab configuration, starts at around $32,500. Now, if you're comparing that to the new Tacoma, this is about $1,000 more expensive versus the Toyota. It's also around $4,000 more expensive than a Chevrolet Colorado, but it's also around $4,000 cheaper than a GMC Canyon, although the Canyon is considered more of the premium truck. If you guys want the XLT trim, it's going to cost you at least another $3,500 extra. Four-wheel drive will also cost you nearly $3,000 extra. The Lariat trim is going to start at around $5,000 more versus this trim. My particular test truck, with some of the options that it has, like the 301A upgrade package, the extra charge for the color, of course, the advanced tow package and technology package, all in. This particular one that I'm showing you here with destination comes in at around $46,295. I know mid $40,000 for a midsize truck without leather seats or push button start or a sunroof sounds really expensive, but keep in mind, I also just recently spent a week with a Tacoma SR5, which is also kind of the same tier as this truck. That was also in the mid $40,000 range, but it just looked a lot more cheap on the outside. It looked a lot more basic on the inside as well, with its smaller 8-inch display. So I think that Ford has done a good job with the styling of this truck, but I do think that if you guys want the best experience with the Ranger, you're gonna have to spend an extra $5,000 and spend basically around $50,000 for the Lariat trim. So I'm hoping Ford will eventually kind of trickle down some of the options that the Lariat has into the XLT to make this truck a little bit more enjoyable, especially if you're looking for the latest tech features that the Lariat is going to give you, of course, for that extra cost. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Ford Ranger XLT. If you're also looking to see the latest vehicles I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.